very beginning of time, right? And I can ask you one question right now. What does history tell us about Africa? Who discovered Africa? If you write right now on Google who discovered Africa, you find out that is one white man that he came and discovered Africa. And you can ask yourself that how can you discover a place that already exists? How can you discover a place that people already live in that place? It is impossible, but that's what the history tells us. That's what people believe about Africa, that it was discovered by a white man. This guy, he came, and then he went back, he gave a report, and then the next we know is colonialism, because those guys, they sat somewhere to divide Africa like a piece of cake, because they discovered it, they own it, it belonged to them. But that is us. We discovered, we're the first people to know. And today you have a lot of people around the world that they think that Africa was discovered by them.
I used to believe I was a jack of all trades, master of none, until I got the revelation I was a storyteller with many different ways to express myself. I could write a story. A picture can tell a story. I could sing a story. I've been walking with my face turned to the sun. I could dance a story. Weight on my shoulders, bullet in my gun. Oh, I got eyes in the back of my head. Oh, Lord, case I have to run. I'm no jack of all trades. I tell stories. That's my superpower.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's good to be back. It's been a while doing this live stream, but I'm glad I'm back, man. And it's good to see everybody who is joining us right now. I know it has been a while for us doing live stream. Yes, we did yesterday, but before that, we went kind of like 2 weeks without doing any live stream. But we thank God that we are back. And man, the conversation that I'm going to have here today, it's very important, all right? It's very important for Africans in the continent, of course, and it's very important for our brothers and sisters outside of this continent, all right? There's a lot of things going on, and I think it's important to address this issue, to talk and to have conversation. And not only me and, you know, the guests that I'm going to have here today, but me and you guys, everybody who is watching out there, everybody's out there. It's very important to participate in this conversation. So I want to ask you one thing, you know, like this video, copy this link and share with somebody out there. All right. We need to spread the word, and we need to have as many people as possible coming in here and just have this conversation. You know, nearly the end, we're going to have a session for our question and answers. You guys can drop your questions in the comment section, and then we'll get a time to answer those questions. But also, you guys, some of you will have an opportunity to actually come in the live stream and actually ask and contribute as well. So everything, it depends on this conversation that we're going to have right now. And I want to acknowledge everybody who is watching right now and those who will watch later, because maybe you're not watching this stream live, but I want to tell you the good news. Yes, still, you know, share your comments, your thoughts, and anything that you have in the comment section. You know, I'll be coming back here, you know, to read those questions and to see what we can do. It's important to have this conversation. It's important to look at the direction of where we're heading. it's important to do everything we can in our power to bring our people together. By any means, we must bring our people together to make sure that we have a better Africa, you know, for us, because we're going to be here for a long time, all right? We're younger generation, so we still have a time to be here, but also for our children, you know, and, you know, and grandchildren who will come here in this, you know, continent. I want to believe that where we are today, you know, it's because of the good things, I would say, and the mistakes that have been done in the past. But also we can change the course for tomorrow and for what's going to happen, you know, next. It really depends on what we are doing right now. So without wasting time, I'm just going to have a word of prayer, and then I'll have my guest here today, and we're going to jump right away to this conversation. God, I want to thank you for today. Very beautiful day you've given us to come here and to talk and to just share ideas and conversation about, you know, Africa. And especially in this topic that we're going to talk about, how to heal, you know, and to bridge a gap between Africa and, you know, diaspora, which I mean our people who are outside. Yes, there's kind of gap there. And one of our mission is actually to unite our people in the continent and outside of the continent. So I just want to pray that you give us wisdom, you'll give us your strength, and, you know, you'll help us to navigate this journey so that our people can come together no matter what. I give you praise. In your precious name, Jesus, I pray. Amen. All right, guys. So without wasting time, I appreciate everybody who is joining. Please like this stream so that he may, you know, appear a lot on YouTube out there. But also you can share this, you know, on your pages, on WhatsApp, and share with your friends as well to come and to join us today. All right, without wasting time, ladies and gentlemen, here is Chidi. Hey, my sister, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. First of all, you're looking really good. I love seeing that African outfit. How many African outfits do you have so far?
Ooh, many. Yeah. Got some made when I was in Ghana, so I love it. Whenever I see the fabric, I pick it up. I get it.
Yeah, that looks really good on you. It's really good to have you here today. And it's really a pleasure to have this conversation. Yes, we had a talk yesterday, and we decided to do this stream today. But, you know, it's just a pleasure to have you here. So, you know, for the startup, you know, would you mind to introduce yourself for people to know your name, your full name? I love your full name, you know, with our community.
Yes. So my full name is Zikora Nachidi Pearl, which is probably what you see there too, Inefuna, which is Igbo from Nigeria.
Zikora Nachidi Inefuma. Let's start with that. You know, what does it mean, your name? Because, you know, I told you this yesterday, and I'll say it again. I love that name, but they were just, you know, from pronunciation, like how you pronounce it. You know, it's a great name. Do you mind to let us know the meaning of that name?
Yes. So my first name, Zikora Nachidi, means show the world that God is real. I often go by Chidi, which just by itself means God is real or God exists. And then middle name is my grandma's name, so that represents my Southern roots and heritage here. She's the our family, obviously. And then Inefuna means my land is not lost.
Yeah, incredible.
My land is not lost.
Come on now.
Wait, but it's not.
So wait. The first name and the second name, both of them, you name yourself, right? Like recently.
I did, yes. So my name, which is probably at the end of that trailer, my name prior to this was Vienna Spence. So, and we talked about the significance of changing a name and what you're called. And as a person coming from a culture where we do not haphazardly name our children. We don't just, as Africans, we don't just pick a name out of a hat. That name prophesies something over our child. It's something we them accomplish or something we feel like they're supposed to embody. So for a lot of African Americans, for most of us, our last names specifically are names that were attached to our owners. So literally when your last name is Spence or Williams or whatever it is, that's typically the plantation that you would belong to. And you were named that so that they would know who your master was and where to return you. So especially as a believer, I know that different seasons of life, and especially when you've had certain encounters with God, He will often change what you are called as well. So there's so much power in a name. And for me, coming home to myself, coming home to my African roots, that was very, very important to me. I did not want a name on me that signified what family my family used to belong to. And I wanted to choose something that honored the tribe that I came from. So
that's really interesting, because I think most of us who don't know, like us who are not living in the States, we do not know that, even for me, it sounds really sounds very interesting that, can you share with us, like, how did that process go, like actually naming people? Because for me, I thought the names that you guys have, your parents actually gave those names to you, but you are saying that most of the names were named according to the owner that was, basically, the master, your master, right? So is that how it happened? Like, you had your original name, like when you were born, but then, because of all this history that we know of, slave and everything, they had to change your name to something else.
So when the transatlantic slave trade, for when we first arrived in America by force, we were not permitted to speak our language. Our culture was forcibly stripped from us. So we were not permitted to speak our language. And we talked about this the other day, how critical language is to culture. It helps form the backbone of your cultural experiences. And then our names ended up being changed because we just got labeled with it. So whereas you would have come over on the ship with an African name, they would have then, maybe in their records, they would have had a certain name for you, but then if they couldn't pronounce it or whatever, and then to indicate what plantation you belong to, then you got assigned your last name, typically was your master's last name. And over time, as we lost track of where we came from, because we were all being forced to kind of like blend together. So you lost your tribe, you lost your language, you lost that background. Then we just simply started naming our children generations ago. We simply started naming them European names because that's all we were around and that's all we had to go on. We had lost that very, very important cultural part of naming your child for the people and the tribe that they come from with all that powerful meaning. So it became Alice or Melissa or whatever European name that they chose that maybe they thought sounded pretty or whatever, but it had lost the impact of being named after your people and having the meaning that it's supposed to carry.
Oh, that's really powerful. You reminded me, even for Africa here as well, that's something that we have in similar, because when colonizers came, they actually renamed a lot of places. Like so many places that we have today, they don't have their original name. For instance, you can take an example of Uganda. The former name, it was known as Ukerewe, right? But now, it's named as a Lake Victoria, after the Queen, Victoria from the UK. The same thing to, Victoria Falls. It had its own original name, which actually means like the smoke that thunder, but they had to change it. And even when you went to Burkina Faso, but Sankara, he had to change later on to return to the, the local languages. So when you go throughout the continent, you will see, I don't like using this word, but I used it before. Like you see people who are literally confused with their identity and who they are, because it was actually taken away from them, a long time ago, right? Apparently, even, the continent, Africa as well, it was, renamed by somebody else. So today we have all these new identities that actually somebody put those identities in us. And we are struggling so much to unite, to come together, to cooperate, simply because we have these fake identities that were given to us to divide us apart, to keep us from our brothers and sisters. And we are still struggling today. We cannot change that. Not because of any reason, simply because we cannot come together and decide that we need to go back to the original, or we need to choose another, way we wanna live. And I think it's very interesting how these guys, they had the common agenda. Whether you're in the continent or you're outside the continent, you know, we must change your identity to something else.
Yeah. It just indicates that, you know, our enemy knows the power of a name, what you're called. And that's the same thing. When I visited Ghana, there were a lot of people that the name that they would present would be a name that they told me they got when they got baptized, like into Catholicism. They would get a European name. And it's heartbreaking to me. And it really is one of the most diabolical ways to tamper with an identity of someone, is to change what they are known as, or change what they're called.
I think that we really need to address that, you know, in this, like right now, because that is not only Ghana. Even here in Tanzania, like when you baptize kids, when you look at the, you know, Catholic or, you know, Lutheran and other, when they baptize kids, they actually rename them with a second name, and usually it's European name, as you say, not really local name. You know, my name could be like very local, you know, Zikoro Machidi, but you know, after being baptized, I'm called with some other name that is not really African and has completely different meaning. And this is not something to blame others; it's actually to blame us, because we are the one that are doing that in the continent today. Why do you think we should actually, you know, probably we should stop doing that? Or even if we're gonna give like the second name to the children, it should be something that is local, something that reflects who we are as Africans, and not have, you know, a bunch of, you know, European name all across the continent and losing our identity.
I absolutely think we should resist and stop doing that. It's an insult. And the way that came about is a group of people who didn't really know God for real, clearly didn't know God at all. You got a Catholic church built on top of a slave dungeon. You don't know God, period. And you set up a system where access to resources and education and relationship with God goes through this very narrow tunnel of assimilating into European values and names and culture. So essentially, you have a group of people baptizing Africans into Europe. You ain't baptizing people into Christ. You baptizing them into Europe. They're changing names to meet, you know, whatever. And oftentimes they would bring these resources or education, schools that they would build. And the cost for that, I think we really need to address the fact that that wasn't our bright idea. We didn't just want to be baptized and rename ourselves into that. But what they would do is gatekeep and have something that people did want, like, oh, you can go to this school, your kids are going to get a great education. But first you have to assimilate. First, we have to break down that identity in you. First, you have to forfeit your African identity. So they would force people, in order to go to school, they would force them to go through their religious exercises and be stripped of their identity in that way, of what they would be called. So
what do you think that do to us as people? You know, it doesn't matter those who are outside of the continent and for us who are here in the continent, you know, because today you have people who they don't like their names simply because they're too African. They're like, you know, I don't like this name. You know, it sounds too African. I need another name. So they choose all these, you know, cool names. And most of us, I mean, if you go to Instagram's names, you'll find that a lot, right? Nobody wants. A lot of people, a lot of majority of young people, they don't appreciate their local names. They would rather change or shorten a little bit, you know, to sound something else. And I think it created this wave of not really appreciating who we are as ourselves. That's why today you go outside and see white man and treat him like a king, you know, in your own continent, but see another black, you know, man, you know, coming from another African country, but treat them as a, you know, crap or something that you don't really know. We don't appreciate ourselves because of all these system that were already introduced long time, you know, ago to us.
You know, Mika, I'm rocking, so you can tell I'm mad already. But yeah, I think what the generation that you're talking about, and people willingly doing that now, not for access to education, I think what it signifies is one of the saddest and most heartbreaking things of all, which is that we internalized that hate for ourselves, for our features, for our names, for our tribes, for our culture. We internalize that inferiority, which is the reason why it carries on. So it went from being imposed on us to something so many of us now believe. You know, our beauty is not the standard of beauty. Our names are too hard to pronounce. They're not too hard to pronounce by people who are in your village or people where you come from.
Oh, yeah.
Even here, it's a thing. And for me, again, it's a form of resistance. When I changed my name, I did not care. Deuces. I didn't care. But it's a well-known fact that names that sound ethnic over here, the resumes get put in the trash without even evaluating the qualifications of that person. So there are biases in place against that. And I understand, especially over here, why people do it and they choose an easier or more European sounding name is because they know that discrimination exists and they just don't want to have to go through yet another hoop as a Black person, as an African person, to get access to something they should be able to get by merit alone.
Oh, well, I really appreciate it. I would love to know what you guys are thinking, what you guys are watching. You can drop your comment and your thoughts as well, you know, as we keep diving into this topic. I want us to go back to when our people that I'm talking to, you know, your ancestors, our ancestors, when they were taken away from the continent. I want to start from the very beginning of time to go to where we want to go today. I want to go back there to where they were taking. Who do you think is to blame? Because I'm asking this question because there's two sides, right? There's two sides out there. There's a side that, you know, believes and really mad at, you know, Africa and ancestors that, you know, these are the people that sold us out to these white men. All right. They took us a long time ago. And even after they gained independent, they never asked for us. They never fought for us. They never asked for us to return back home. They sold us. And then you have a group of people who believe that, okay, we were not sold. I mean, they didn't just sold us, but they were taken by force. Like our people, ancestors here in the country, they didn't have a choice because, you know, somebody has a gun to you and he wants like all these, you know, smart and all these, you know, good looking guys with a lot of muscles, you know, they want to take them away from, you know, from the continent. And there were no choice that, can you sell? No, it was just, you know, taken away from the continent. So you have these two group of people and basically like you have like diaspora side and, you know, the African side as well. We believe that, okay, this is how it happened. The other side believe, no, you guys sold us out and you don't. So you have this barrier and you have this wall that it began from the very beginning of time. Even before we start talking about how to bring together, from the very beginning of time, we already have this separation. Who do you think to blame? And what do you think really happened from your side?
So as a person, obviously in the diaspora, I can say I've heard both sides of that. I think it was both. I think, yeah, there were people who were kidnapped and stolen. Obviously, that's documented. They would raid villages and, you know, steal people, kidnap people. And then there were people that cooperated with the Europeans, African people that cooperated with the Europeans, and then captured and sold their own, I want to say their own people, but other tribes typically. That's important to note because, first of all, there was slavery being practiced in Africa, in other countries before Europeans came. But it was not the type of slavery that my ancestors went through. What we call chattel slavery, where you were enslaved in a way that had nothing to do with debt. You could have been kidnapped into it, sold into it. Your children were born slaves. There was no opportunity for freedom. The kind of slavery that we were put in by colonizers is different than the kind of slavery that was practiced on the continent. That said, obviously, I don't condone slavery in any way, shape, or form. But we have to deal with the fact that not just in Africa, but all over the world. Over here in my culture, we have credit cards and all these different things. So you can file bankruptcy. If you can't pay your debts, there's a way out. But in other places in the world, and for a long time before this system was here in America, if you had debts and you owed people things, you paid for that with your labor, with your life. You were like an indentured servant. So slavery in that sense was common in the world just in general. So I think it's both. I think there was kidnapping involved. There was bribery involved. You know, they came with these weapons and were like, we can help you finally deal with this tribe or that tribe. And, you know, it'll make you more powerful, more whatever. All we want is access to ABC, your mineral oil, your whatever. And I would strongly like to believe that even though for the cowards that did sell their own people, because that's not everybody, but for the ones that did sell their own people, I would like to think that they had no idea that those decisions were going to result in Africa and her people being in the condition that we are in today, where Africa is still being exploited, both for her resources in the ground and her resources in these melanated bodies. That trend of letting somebody come over and negotiate for your riches, whether those riches are gold or diamonds or people or whatever, that it hasn't stopped to that day. So we just, a door was open that we need to slam shut. That needs to.
You have spoken about the difference between slavery that was happening in the continent and the slavery that was happening outside of the continent. If you could share them down, what are those differences for those who maybe do not know or do not understand? Because there might be people who do not understand at all or not see the problem. I mean, the difference of slavery that was happening. What do you think is the biggest difference between two of them?
The chattel type of slavery that was racially based. Your children were born into it, meaning there was never any opportunity for you to be free. There's actually a really good book written about that by, and I can't, I'll put it in the comments, but it's a book about slavery in Ghana and the major differences. And those were some of them. Like there were opportunities to get out of slavery. I'm not sure how many, when you're dealing with something like that. But when we were brought here, that was done. You were a slave, then your children were slaves, and your grandchildren were slaves. It literally was relegating a group of people to being property indefinitely. Whereas for indentured servitude in other places in the world, if you paid off your debt or met some other qualifications, you might have been able to get your freedom back. But this was just default. If you were here, you were Black, you were African, you are a slave. Everything you ever give birth to was intended to be a slave. There was no way out.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong. And I think that is what, because I've heard even the African Museum that is there at, I believe, at Washington DC, like the story of Black Americans, African Americans in the US, it begins with them being a slave, because that's kind of like how their story began. In that country. But we're talking about this yesterday, that our story doesn't begin there. Like the story of Africans, it begins here in the continent, that we have our own land, we had our own people. Yes, some of them cowardly, they sold our people, and nobody can argue with that, because we know, even us, we know that we have a lot of our leaders and sisters that they were sold here in the continent and they were killed. Like you can talk about Lumumba, from Congo. He was sold by his own people and he was killed. Recently, you can talk about Gaddafi as well. People, they turned back on him, his own people, even other leaders from the continent, they turned against him, out of fear of death and sanctions. And we lost our leader. So I believe in that, that concept that always people struggling with this, especially people from the continent. We have to understand that we had people in the back who actually sold our people. Even today you can talk about today, we still have people, betrayers, who constantly betraying Africa, constantly working with, if it is Western or Asia, against our own people in the continent, selling our own people, and our people are dying. It's happening that today. So personally, I really understand how when someone is speak like that, I understand how they feel, because you know, it's what's still happening today. Kind of feel like, you know, we never learned, you know, what happened in the past, and we're still doing it today. But I want to ask you this question. So how can we reconcile that history, like how, like that particular point that we talked about, the beginning of your exodus from Africa? Because literally you're like in the exile land, right? How can we reconcile that story? Because today you have people who do not want to hear, do not even consider themselves as Africans. Of course, they will say that, you know, our ancestors are Africans, but I am not. And they have that, how can I say, that rage against, you know, the continent and Africans in the continent because of what happened in the past. How can we reconcile that today?
I think that it is critical for us, regardless of what has happened in the past, to recognize that, first of all, we got in this position from division, the division that we had amongst ourselves, the division where someone from Nigeria will look at someone from Ghana and say, you're not me. Or even within a country itself, this tribe, you're not of my tribe, so you're not me. What really happened is we had a group of people that exploited us and capitalized off the fact that when we saw another African person, another Black human being, if they were of a different tribe or location than us, then we did not see ourselves. So that perception of like, yeah, okay, we might have sold some people out, but they weren't from my tribe, or that wasn't, you know, exactly my people. We are subjected in the outside world. So we have, you know, our different tribes and our different things respectively. But in the outside world, we are all viewed as Black.
Yeah.
When a war pops off in the Ukraine and they leave, well, with my own eyes, this is 2022 now. This is after 2020 and George Floyd and all the things that you would have thought made people recognize how Africans were being treated all over the world. No, this was in 2022. They formed a human chain. They literally held hands with each other and said, no Blacks allowed. Not no Nigerians, no Jamaicans, no Americans, no Tanzanians, no Black people allowed. And so I think we have to start reconciling that by the fact that we cannot afford that division. If you look around at Africa and African people and you are dissatisfied with the way that things are going, not to say that there aren't good, beautiful, amazing things happening, but overall, you have to recognize that we have to unite in order to stop that. Like, there is no other solution. So I think that's the first place to start, is recognizing that we got in this mess by being divided. And we had a group of people that came and capitalized off of those tribal or whatever divisions. They profited off of that. Same thing like we talked about yesterday with South Africa. Dutch people in South Africa are outnumbered. I think it's like 8 or so to 1, maybe 9 or 10 to 1 by real South Africans. And the only way you can pull off something like that is when it happens, people don't feel, other Africans don't feel associated with being South Africans. It's like, that's their problem. That's sad. That's happening there. Oh, have you heard what's happening in this part or this part or this part? But better believe that would be impossible to do, to come in our continent, to take our people, to exploit our resources, to impoverish us, and then paint us to the rest of the world like we're dangerous and inferior monkeys. That would not be possible if, when you stepped to one place in Africa, we had that mindset that you have stepped to all of us. Step to one African, you've stepped to us all. Like, we would not tolerate it. And that's where we are going to have to go from where we are. So I think I'm more concerned with basing healing and reconciliation off knowing our end goal, and we cannot get there by fighting amongst each other. That's number one. We need each other because we the only ones that got each other's back. We need each other, right? And then also I would say, come out of your box, come out of your preconceptions, and experience the group of people that you think you know so much about. And we have a wide open world now, thanks to social media, thanks to, you know, all the different opportunities we have to connect. Talk to some real people, because I got told so many times, Africans don't like y'all. Africans don't, you're not born in Africa. Yeah, your ancestors were African, but they don't think you're African anymore. You don't belong to them anymore. They don't accept you. But in interacting with actual Africans from the continent, I have found that to be untrue. It's not true. I'm sure there are some people that feel like that, but having visited and interacted with my people, I've gotten love. I don't know, you know, the same people benefit from telling us lies. They benefit from our division, and we need to outsmart them. It's taken 500 years. We need to outsmart them.
Yeah. You know, I love the fact you spoke about, you know, unity, and you said something before. I think it's very important to point out. You said that the reason why some of our ancestors, they sold our people, it was because of the, you know, tribal rival, which basically it was initiated or introduced by the colonizers themselves, right? They brought it here, and they knew the easy way for us to divide is actually to side with one group and also supporting another group, so that, you know, they may fight each other, you know, they may not get along with one another, and then they'll be able to sell these people away with us. And you know, and that's how it happened. And I mentioned that even today, you know, it's still the issue in Africa, right? It's still the issue of Africa. You still have Africans inside the continent who actually, you know, selling other Africans, like literally siding with the outsiders to stand against whatever that is happening in the continent. And it's sad that these things keep happening, and we're not learning from, you know, the mistakes in the past. But it's very important for us, you know, to reconcile, because, and it's very important for us to reconcile, because it's very important for diaspora to know that they have a home, right? Yes, you might be wherever you are right now, it's your home, you're comfortable, you're having good life. That's good. Like, that is really good. But also it's important to know that you have a home, like you have your own land, you know, in Africa. Yes, governments might not be acknowledging that. I think one of the things that we want to be fighting, us as, you know, Swahili Nation One Africa, is fighting for the, dual citizenship. You know, I want all the diaspora, African diaspora, you know, to have dual citizenship from, you know, wherever they are right now, and from any country they want to be part of in Africa, because it doesn't matter where you're coming from, whether it's West or East, but you're an African. And if you want to come here to Tanzania, why not having a dual citizenship of, you know, this country and also wherever you are? I think in that way, it will help the diaspora, our people, to have that sense of identity. Not only knowing that I'm an African, but also holding a passport that it actually belonged to, you know, this country. You have a sense of not just a tourist or like an exile. You are running away from where you're born to your home, but you don't really have the identity in the home. And I want to ask you this question. How do you think, how much is important for diaspora like you and other people out there to actually have that identity, let's say, in papers from Africa?
Super, super important. I think it's important for us to be pushing for that. That's our home. I can speak to this as a person who comes from a place where Africans are the minority. Y'all, for my brothers and sisters that have always lived on the continent, that I want you to know from my heart, it is a deeply, deeply healing experience for us to come home to Africa and be surrounded by people who look like us, who are us, because we have been robbed of that experience our whole life. So to come home and be amongst your own people and not always feel like, you're hiding or trying to fit yourself into this box. You don't know whether or not you should wear your braids to work because you don't want to be considered ghetto. And then you can't really, you speak your version of English in your house. And then when you step out of the house, you have to be very prim and proper because you really don't want to seem like, and we call it code switching over here. There's a literal term for it. There is a mode that we operate in when we step outside of our house so that we can seem less intimidating, safe, more, assimilated, so that we won't be discriminated against or harmed. And when you come to Africa, you don't even realize how you are carrying that weight with you all the time, that dual consciousness. But when you come home to Africa and that falls off you, because you don't have to do that in the presence of other Black people, y'all, it's a thing, and it's a healing, deeply healing thing. And I think it's important to recognize that, yeah, America gets painted one way by the Western media, but all of us are not at home here. All of us are not at home here. And I'm sure we'll get to talking about this, but I personally plan to permanently relocate, but all of us are not at home here. There's a lot to it. And there are many of us that do want to come back and do want to contribute. And so I think that, to your question, having that dual citizenship, having a path back home, because that's part of the reason after we got free, we didn't come back. Some people did, but many people did not, because there was no clear path back. It was like, man, you don't know your tribe, you don't know your language, you're not familiar with your culture anymore. And there's all these barriers to go through paperwork wise or whatever to get back home. We need a path back home because many of us want to come back home. We not just in America living some fast high life, chilling.
That's why I think it's very important for us to have one Africa, because imagine if we have one Africa already, and what's going to happen is the first thing to be done, if it's one Africa, the first thing to be done, and this message can go even to African Union, because we already have organizations that represent the unity of Africa. It has to go to them. The first thing that has to be done is actually open up the doors for our brothers and sisters that were taken long time ago and sold long time ago away from Africa. Like, extend that invitation. Anyone who wants to come back home, there's an open door for you guys to come back to Africa. And there's an African Union passport for all of you. I think this is something that we can start with, diaspora, what I'm saying? Because these are people who actually, some of them, they don't know their identity. They don't know where they're coming from, right? Unless you do DNA tests. But most of them, they don't know. But also they can get an opportunity to actually to decide, to choose that, okay, I want to go to this side, I want to go to that side. They can choose whatever they love. And I think here is where the African Union passport can actually play its role. First of all, for all these diaspora who are outside of the continent and want to come back home, give them African Union passport so that they can explore the continent. They can go throughout all the continent to see the countries, to see anything, anywhere they want to reallocate to, they can just go by choice. They can go and see that through African Union passport. If we have that, it's so much easier, because we kind of like open up the doors for them. And of course, for people in the continent as well, to be able to, to interact with one another and to cut down all these, barriers that we have right now within the continent. And I don't know why they don't see that, because for me, I see a huge potential. Diaspora, every time when they come home, they don't just come, basically they come to open businesses, they come to start organizations or whatever, all these organizations that basically they give like employment to the people, and other people they get to, to get job and all this stuff. So there's a big potential for our people to actually come here, whoever wants to come back here, and excel, just like the normal people who are living here in the continent. But most of them, they don't want to come back because it's a struggle. It's a struggle from papers. It's a struggle for visa. Like, how can I get visa? I want to go. How is it going to be? So many questions, so many bureaucracy that you feel like, oh, dang, man, this is my own, like, I feel like I start another struggle in Africa when I go there. I would rather continue to fight for the fights that I'm fighting in the United States than go and start another struggle. I can't fight for another 100 years to come just to, and it's home. You know what I'm saying? And I think this is where, as people in the continent, we have a huge responsibility to fight for that, to fight for our people outside of the continent, so that we may create the good environment, a better environment for our people to come back home and have a home, have a rest. Like,
and that
rest is very important.
Yeah,
rest is very important. Rest of mental, rest of heart. Like, okay, share with us the experience, because you told me yesterday that you came to Africa for the first time. And I don't know how old are you, but you came to Africa for the first time. When did you come, and how was the feeling the first time you come? Share with us the positive experience, share with us the negative experience, because it's very important to know where did you go, and we can navigate through your experience right now.
So I went to Ghana. And I booked a tour. So we had the dopest tour guides. Shout out Awuni Tours, because they, man, just took us everywhere and crafted so many experiences for us. So I got to do so many things. Speaking to the reconciliation that you were talking about before, between the diaspora and the continent, so many of the activities that we did were built around that. Like, I got to go to the slave castles, which was very, very heartbreaking and hard to do. But when we came out on the other side of that door of return, there was somebody waiting for us, and they washed our legs and our feet and welcomed us back and spoke over us that, you know, our feet were being planted back on the continent, back on the place, you know, the soil that we came from. We went to the Slave River as well, where our ancestors would have walked to have their last bath before they went to these dungeons to be sold or traded or whatever. And they invite you when you go, like, that you can take your shoes off and walk where they would have walked in the same way. I don't know what it is about taking your shoes off and walking in the same, but that broke me. When I tell you I wept the whole way, I wept the whole way. So as a person in the diaspora coming to see that, I learned more about my history than I ever have in an American classroom. That was the most rich history lesson I had ever had. And there's so much African-American history in Ghana. They've preserved that. W.E.B. Du Bois is actually buried in Ghana, which I did not know until I went. So there were those experiences, history and reconciliation. And then just plain and simple, Africa was one of the most, it's not one of the most, it is the most beautiful place I have ever been. And I've traveled.
Is that right?
Place I've ever laid eyes on. So the first thing that happened when I landed and I saw Africa, that I realized the lies that I had been told, the pictures I'd seen, the news that I'd always been exposed to. Africa looked nothing like it looked in these daggum National Geographic, you know, magazines. So that was one thing that was very healing, because the way that you view the place that you come from reflects on how you view yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
This beautiful land with these beautiful, dope, resilient people. It's deeply healing for me.
Yeah.
The food, of course, was banging. No question about that. But I'm a foodie.
Yeah.
I like, you already know, but I like to eat.
You already know.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to know.
Honestly.
I want to know if you had a culture shock, all right? Because I know, you know, in America is more of the, you know, individualistic, you know, kind of culture, type of culture. But when you come to Africa, it's very different. It's actually the opposite. So did you have any culture shock coming to Africa, and how were you prepared? Like, did you know that this is what I'm going to first and I should be prepared? Or you came, you didn't know anything and you just go, you know, with the flow? Like, how was your experience coming from completely different culture to another different culture? Because I think one of the things that we struggled a lot, for instance, if today I marry a white woman, all right, I'm already prepared of a culture shock, because I know that she's having completely, like, she's raised from different environment, you know, different countries, different culture, different language, different all the stuff, you know. But if I get married to a black woman, it doesn't matter in my country or another country in Africa. Most of the time, we do not really think about the differences that we might have. It could be even the same country, but then just the fact that we are coming from different, from the same country, it doesn't mean that we have the same culture, right? We were raised different. We're coming from different families. So sometimes it's very easy not to be prepared, you know, for that and expect a lot of things, like really have high expectation of this place. But then you go there, you find people who look like you, who basically speak like you or wear like you, but you have this different culture. Like maybe sometimes it might be hard to understand one another, to understand why they're doing these things this way and why you're doing these things that way. So tell us a little bit about that experience and how, you know, were you able to encounter that?
Yes, absolutely. There was culture shock, but in the best ways. I feel like I was semi-prepared for that in the sense that my aunt, who took me to Africa as a birthday gift.
Wow. It was a birthday gift.
No birthday gift ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. What a gift.
I know, she's the dopest. She had been to the continent several times, and also from following content from African creators and African American creators. When I got on that plane, I was prepared to leave my little Western American mind on American soil. So I think that helped me in the sense that I feel like, and this not just for me, this is for anybody in the diaspora, you got to come home with some humility. Like, you need to be willing to learn and to, you know, observe and experience. And I think that just goes for if you're going to be an American traveling anywhere, because so much of what we get told over here is like our way is the highway, it's the best way, it's the right way. And in order for you to really enjoy the world and be a global citizen and get what you should be getting from your traveling experiences and from other cultures, you're going to have to drop that because you've been lied to. That's the first thing that you have to realize is that you have been indoctrinated to believe that your way is the only way, the right way, the best way. You've been lied to. So you have to come with that humility that will allow you to have the experiences that you need to have. I was very, I was shocked by the way that I saw African men interact with each other, like that camaraderie and like brotherly sort of way. I was shocked at how much they dance, and you know, groups of dudes will get up and dance with each other, and that's something that
dancing everywhere, you know, on the street, in the village, you see women like fetching water and dancing and singing, you know, all the day long.
Killing it. And don't get me wrong, we have not been stripped of our roots like that. Let a bass line.
Hey.
So it's gonna be what it is. But a group of dudes dancing with each other.
Oh yeah, we do that.
By that, but it was healing for me because so over here the propaganda or the conditions that have been created is that we're always at war with each other. This is coming from my spot type of attitude, and I saw something different, and it was good to see like, okay, so we weren't originally on that. That's not the true thing of who we are. And then I also think it helps to realize that when you see these cultures, man, just be open to learn about yourself, man. That's all I have to say. These people are your people. We're the same people.
Yeah.
We're indigenous to the same place. So learn, because you will learn something about yourself, and it'll be healing and beautiful.
You know, you say something very important, and I want to pinpoint that. You say, learn about yourself, because, you know, wherever you are right now, if you are a diaspora, you're outside of the continent, your ancestors, they were taken from somewhere, from the continent, right? From Africa. That's where your origin, that's where your roots are. That's who you are. That's who you really are. It doesn't matter how many generations passed, but that is you. So moving back to the continent and seeing the people in the continent, those are your people. Like, if, let's say, for us who are still here, our ancestors, they were not taken for whatever reason. They were not taken or they were not sold. So we are still here, you know, in the continent. So basically, come back home is actually seeing the part of yourself, seeing the part of yourself that you never get to experience. You might be 20 years or 40 years or 50 years, but this is part of yourself that you never get to experience, whether you know or you don't. So seeing it, you say something very important with the eyes of humility. Seeing it, it's basically knowing that, oh, this could be me. Like, this is my brother, this is my sister, and let me get to learn, let me get to understand, let me get to see how they live, how they operate. Yes, there's a lot of issues that we have in Africa, but looking at it and seeing it, you know, it helps you to actually like to see where you're coming from, you know, and whatever the story that it came to you, or, you know, how your life turned out to be, that can actually help you to actually serve the people as well in the continent. Because for me, I believe, you know, we talk this a lot of time, that the continent do not really, you know, need another savior. You know what I'm saying? We don't really need another savior. But what we need is, we need people to wake up, people to come together, people to unite, people to know that we are actually one people, regardless of where we're coming from. We are one people. As long as you see this color and you got that color, man, you're coming from here, and you're my brother and you're my sister, and I love you even before I talk to you, right? So I think that is one of the side that it could be done from, you know, the diaspora side. And I always talk about this, that we all have a part to play. For diaspora, of course, you need to be willing to learn. Yesterday I said one word, that know nothing. Like, when you come to the continent, like, literally know nothing. You've heard things, you've learned things, you've seen things on TV, you've seen everywhere, but know nothing. And come here, come here without knowing anything. I remember when I was in South Korea, I saw a lot of things. Like, I was watching some dramas, you know, South Korea. I think most of you guys are watching, and then you see this guy. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. You know, I'm live here on YouTube and live on TikTok at the same time. So on TikTok, like, people, they can actually give you like a head and all those stuff. So it transforming my face when they comment that, and that's why I was laughing. I was like, what the hell is this person? But anyways, I appreciate, guys. Thank you for joining me. So when I was watching all this drama of South Korea, and then you see like Koreans wearing all these traditional clothes. We call them hanbok. All right, hanbok is like all these traditional clothes of Koreans. Those are dramas we're watching in Tanzania, like long time ago drama. So when I was going to Korea, I thought that I'll go there and I'll see people wearing hanbok everywhere. I got to the airport, and then I saw ladies wearing very little, like small, little tiny skirt, like right here. Some of them you can even see buttocks. And I was like, am I in South Korea or am I in another place? The idea I had through the media, it was completely opposite to what I saw there. So after leaving, and you saw movies, and then you see all these things, how they do it, you think this is how they do there. But in reality, they don't do that. So what I did when I was inviting people to come and advising them, I told them that, hey, first advice that I'll give it to you, first and the only advice, if you want to come to Korea, know nothing. Forget about everything you've seen on TV. Forget about everything you've seen in the drama, and then just come with like empty head. Do not know anything. Come here and start learning from the beginning, from 0 to 8. Because what happens is, if you know things and you come with those ideas, you already have expectation. And if you meet anything that do not meet with your expectation, you'll be disappointed. You'll be hurt, and you'll get away from Africa. You'll be like, I hate this place. But if you come without knowing anything, you come little like that, you'll be eager to learn. You know, that's what you'll be finding. You'll be trying to understand, why these people talking like this? Why they act like this? Why they do like this? And you'll find yourself actually learning from the scratch, knowing how these people are operating, and how my people, actually not these people, my people are operating, and how my people are living. And that will really help to bring these two sides together, eventually. That's one side, from the diaspora side when they come home. I think that You know, I think that is very important, because the experience you had, Chidi, is the opposite to experience other people have. You know, we have people who, you know, left Africa, like literally came here with so much joy, with so much expectation, and then they run away from Africa. They hate it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to see anything, because they were hurt of all the experience that happened to Africa, and even wondering, like, how can Africans survive in this kind of environment? You know, you had a different experience, but we have people who had that, and we cannot ignore that. You know, it could be, you know, it could be expectation. It could be, you know, knowing things, like having ideas of where you're coming from, you know, but also it could be the real experience that people are going through here in the continent. What would you say? What would you speak about us Africans who are here in the continent? What do you think, from your side first, what do you think we should do? Because we were talking about diaspora, but for us, what do you think, you know, we should do, especially when you come here home? Let's say you come with your expectation. You come with knowing some stuff. What do you think we should do on our side, you know, so that we may bridge this gap between two sides?
Same humility, and have mercy on us, and have patience with us, because we did not leave Africa willingly. We did not forfeit our culture or our language or our heritage on purpose. It's not like we as Americans thought we were better than our African brothers and sisters, so then we just stopped speaking the language because that's primitive, and, you know, who would do that? It's not like we chose that this would be a better place and we didn't want anything to do with Africa. So know that you're dealing with a group of people that, yes, you know, look like you, but don't speak your language, don't, you know, have their culture all the way or whatever. So yesterday at church, I met some people that are Igbo. We're living in a very exciting time, by the way, because baby, African ancestry DNA, there used to be a time where you would say, oh, I know I came from Africa because I'm Black, but I don't know exactly where I came from. You can find that out now and begin to integrate and learn about where the specific tribe you came from. But just in general, like, we are a group of people searching for something. We are not completely at home in America. There's a lot that happens here. We're still struggling and viewed and treated a specific kind of way. So when we come, even when, you know, sometimes with our uppity Western attitudes, just not everybody comes like that, but some do. Have mercy on us, because you're looking at a group of people that are in deep need of healing, and who have lost who they are because it's been stripped from them. Do not get, we have created culture here. There's African American culture here. But so much of the things that go into our culture come from Africa, and we're so disconnected with that, we don't even realize it. I grew up eating yams and eating, you know, collard greens and cornbread with my hands, and things that, we're I never knew that all that stuff came. I never knew, because we're completely disassociated with it. So for the diaspora, those of us that go visit, you talked about, you know, coming to open businesses and all of that. I think it's important to make sure that you're not just going to the continent to run. Don't run. Don't just be running away from an environment that's not conducive to African people. Like, we all have to also be willing to learn and engage in the communities that we're going to. Let somebody who's already local there lead the way, you know?
Yeah, indeed.
We talked about, you know, don't come over with a colonizer mindset. I don't know why I'm trying to sugarcoat it, but don't come over with a mindset. And for Africans that are already on the continent, don't believe the stuff you see about us either. The same group of people that's telling us that there's nothing in Africa but poor, dying, starving babies are the exact same people that are telling y'all that we are criminals and thugs with no culture. It's coming from the same place. And when you wake up and recognize that us being empowered and unified terrifies people who want to keep exploiting us, then you understand why they do what they do. This, what's happening now, is the way we start to heal this. People like you, Mika, people out here, you know, creating content and building these bridges, because this is the first time in my life that I can remember that I can talk directly to people on the continent. I can see somebody film Zanzibar or Ghana or Nigeria or whatever, and I don't have to rely on American media or Western media to tell me what it's like, because they've been lying. Africa from Africans, baby, it's nothing like. So we need to continue these sorts of things and not be waiting for anybody from the outside to come in and make a situation where we unify. We are family, and we need to have them uncomfortable conversations. You know what I mean?
Indeed, indeed. It's very important what you say, and I think my message to Africans in the continent would be, do not be intimidated, and do not feel inferior, because I think, you know, and this is another thing, you know, cultural difference between Africa and, let's say, in United States, it's too big. The difference between these two cultures is too big. Like in my country today, if you speak English, because our language is Swahili, so we speak Swahili, but if you speak English, people, they look at you with different perspective. They look at you like you are above them. They look at you actually like literally with respect, that he knows English, like they admire you. But what it does to them, they actually feel lesser about themselves, that I can't speak English, oh, they're better than me. So you have people who are feeling inferior when diaspora come home. And what that does is that it creates this gap between these two, you know, two groups. Just because you're not speaking English, it doesn't make you lesser than anyone else. It doesn't change your value. Actually, you're speaking our language, which is our mother tongue, that most of diaspora, they want to learn their language. They want to learn their language because that was taken away from them by force, and they want to understand their culture. They want to start learning that. So you who are speaking the local language, your own language, you should be proud of yourself, because that is something that is left with you. You have it with you. It's your identity. It's you. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't make you better when you speak English. It's the language that were used to colonize us and to separate us from one another, and all those other languages. These are the languages that separate our people. So today you have the group of people who are speaking English and group of people who do not speak English, and there's a gap between two of them. People who are speaking English in the continent feel like, oh yeah, I can speak English, you know, no. And people who do not speak English as well, they're like, I cannot speak English, you are there. It shouldn't be like that. We should all, you know, all of us, we have a role to play. You know, when I look at you, you come home, I look at you like, oh, it's my fellow brother. Yes, he had different experience. I had a different experience as well. And that should be the reason, not for us to separate, but for us to come together and learn from one another. Because trust me, Chidi, there's something you have to learn from me. And there's something I have to learn from you. That's why yesterday we had this conversation for more than 3 hours, you know, because there's just a lot of things. Did not expect you're going to have that long conversation, but there's a lot to learn from one another. There's a lot to understand from one another, that you have this conversation and you feel like you're full with so much wisdom because you actually get to understand something else. And, you know, jumping from that point, I think one of the things that we spoke as well, me personally, I spoke with you, you know, yesterday, and I want to share here. I personally do not like, and I do not see as a good idea when you have diaspora coming away from, you know, away from the continent of Africa and coming here in the continent and start start their own organization, like diaspora community. Like, let's say even, you know, their houses, where they live, who they cooperate with, who they associate themselves with. You know, what happens is basically just creating another society in your home, not really going to your place and know and get along with the people, but actually creating another society in the continent. And that's what that brings. It brings division. It brings differences. It brings difference between these two different groups. So me, as a local African and look at you like, oh, they're them. Maybe I might not even be able to go there, because most of Africa, the local people, they cannot even go to airports because they feel like airports, it's not for them. It's for some other people. For those who are traveling, they cannot even go close to there. Some of them, they even, stopped when they go there. So you have all these small communities that are happening in the continent. You have all these small countries, small tribes that are happening in the continent that, okay, these are the local people and these are. But what that does is that you will never get to learn what is happening. You'll never get to understand how these people live. You are creating a wars between these two sides, and it's going to make very difficult to interact with one another. Then what should be done, in my opinion, is that, yes, if you don't want to live in the place that I live, maybe it's too much. Yes, you can live another place, but then there must be a way for us to interact. You come to the continent, there must be a way for you at least to try to learn the language to whatever country that you're going. Because once you learn the language, once you understand the language, it will be very easy for you to plug in yourself into that community. I remember the time I went to South Korea and I didn't speak the language. The first 2 months, I wanted to come back home. I didn't understand these people. I was like, what kind of culture is this? Nobody greet me. When I sit down, nobody want to sit down with me. They run away. Yes, of course, other people, they just don't want to sit next to a black man, but other people, they're scared that I don't have anything to say. I do not know English. How can I speak to them? And that was kind of like the engine that pushed me to learn Korean. And when I started to speak Korean, it doesn't mean that all the problem ended, but at least there were like one wall that I passed through it, because I could meet with all these Koreans and talk to them, with anything. I would sit down and just start communicating with them. They'll be like, oh, 한국말 잘한다. And then we just start talking for hours and hours because I speak Korean. I will get some free pass sometimes simply because I speak the language. I'll get a privilege simply because I speak the language. So I've been in TV shows, multiple TV shows, because I speak Korean. I don't look Korean, but I speak the language. So learn language is the most important thing, especially when you come to the continent, especially to those countries that are now speaking English. When you come to Tanzania, Chile, and you speak Swahili, you always have this accent. Americans, they always have, like, they speak Swahili like English. Can you speak anything in Swahili? Anything you know?
No, so you can make fun of me.
I just want to prove my point.
Oh. But when I start speaking Swahili, I'm not gonna have an American accent. Like, say something now so I can make fun. No, come on.
What I want to say is your Swahili is sweet. Like when non-speakers speak Swahili, it sounds really sweet, and the people love it. The local people, when you speak, they just know that, oh, this person is not from here. But the fact that you're speaking the language, they appreciate it. You see people coming to you, see people, like you see that interaction and you see that acceptance as well. It's going high. But if you come and you don't even want to learn the language, you don't understand the language, you don't do any effort to learn the language, obviously there will be a gap, and the society and the people, they're not going to accept you. They will see you look like me. When they want to speak to you, they're not really communicating with you. So there's already a barrier there. So I might look at you just because I'm curious, I want to see how you look like, but you feel like, I'm condemning you. You feel like I'm already, looking at you in different ways simply because you cannot communicate. And communication is everything. If we want to unite our people, communication is everything. That's why we fight for one language as well. Swahili is the most spoken language in Africa with so many countries. And we're pushing that for other people as well, at least to understand that. Because right now in Africa, you have universities that are teaching Chinese, teaching French. How is that going to help us? Why should we not teach our own languages? Why should we not teach Swahili? And another special thing about that language is because it does not belong to any tribe. It's not a tribal language, Swahili. It's not a tribal language. It's the language that unite more than 121 tribes, specifically here in Tanzania. So the tribes, they have their own languages here in Tanzania, but Swahili, it's not a tribal language. So it united all these people. And now you have all these multiple countries, like more than 10 different countries speak Swahili in Africa, right? So doing that, it helps us at least to, you know, to communicate with one another. So if you come, it's very important, either in Tanzania, or you go to Nigeria, or you go to Ethiopia, or you go to whatever country you choose to go, it's very important to understand the local language. It might take a while, but at least you can learn it. I have people who learn within 7 months, just within 7 months. You know why? Because they interact with people. That's what I did when I went to South Korea. You know, I was there, and I was sharing with you yesterday, I did not just hang out with Tanzanians, but I had to hang out with Koreans. I had to go to Korean churches, you know, where they don't speak English, they don't understand at all. For me to just sit there, I do not understand anything but that. It was very easy for me to learn. But imagine if I have my own Tanzanian community there, and I always hang out with them, we'll be speaking Swahili forever, and I'll never get to learn Korean. As a matter of fact, you know, I'll feel like, you know, I hate this place. You know, they don't understand me. They don't know. No, because I don't understand them, and I don't want to learn the language as well. So I think both sides, us, you know, and here in the continent, and also outside. And this is coming from a guy who lived in the continent. I mean, was born here in the continent, but also lived outside for a long time. So I understand both sides to some extent, you know, to say what I'm saying. Do you have anything else that you want to add there, Chidi? Or any challenge that you love to challenge as well?
I think that goes for any place, you know, bro, that's not unique to the African continent, in the sense that if you move a place and you don't engage the people that are already there, you know, you're not going to experience that place. And it's kind of like a slap in the face. It's like I mean, it would be like you coming into my house and going to my refrigerator and sleeping in my bed, but you never say one word to me. Why? Why should then you expect to come into my house, into my space, and not talk to me at all? But you want access to all my things. You want to sit on my couch. You want to watch my Netflix. You want to eat my collard greens. Like, I'm not going to have a very good impression of you if you come into my house and my space like that. And so for us, even though, yes, Africa is home for us, we are returning home. We haven't been home in a long time. And so the people who have been holding it down and have been there while we were wherever we were in the world, like, you have to give that respect. And when you do that, it builds a bridge. I remember when I was in Ghana and we were getting our hair braided, and I went downstairs to bring the girls that were going to do it up to our room. And one of the girls, like, backed into the corner in the elevator. She was like, she was scared of me. And it was a wild experience, but I had to engage her. I didn't then back up and be like, ew, like, what is her problem? You know what I mean? I engaged her. I smiled at her. I talked to her. I laughed with her. And by the end of, you know, the 2, 3, 4, 5 hours it takes to get your hair braided, it was much better. She understood that, yeah, we don't have to be afraid of this person. So, yeah, engage the people. We talked yesterday about whether you're coming home because you're running, or you're coming home with the mentality that you are there to build with your people. And I think that mentality, if you come to build with your people and you view African people as your people, you're the same, not above, the same. If you come build, then that will dictate how you treat other people. Because if you're coming to build, then you need local people. You need to speak the language. You need to know the culture. You need to know the places to go. What kind of life are you trying to live where you want to create a suburb of where you came from in any other country? And I should know that. And it's not just those of us that are African American. Americans know that because we talk about it. We don't like when people come here and create their own mini little communities. They take there's a lot of shade thrown when they don't speak the language or engage or whatever. It's the same. So that's understood.
That's, you know, that's so true what you're saying. You know, you know, the truth is this, that, you know, Africa needs you. Africa needs diaspora.
We
need each other. Yes, we need each other, because when you look at the change that is happening in Africa, when you look at people who are standing, if whatever it is, if most of our leaders, most of them, they started abroad, for a long time. They spent their lives there, and then they came back here. Even our ancestors, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, they started abroad. You know what I'm saying? And they came back in the continent. So you see their mindset. Their mindset was actually to take whatever that they want to take from the other side and coming back home to transform the continent for their people, to make the continent a better place for Africans. For Africans, not to make money, not to make profit, but for Africans. Because you are talking about intention. The intention is very important. The intention is very important because, you don't want to have another slave master who is looking like you.
Yeah.
You don't want to have another slave master who's looking like you. And sometimes you feel like that, like you feel like, oh, this is what happened in the past, by the way. But you say something very important, like building the community for your people, of course, for yourself, for your children, and your people as well. I remember this one, I was talking to this one lady, and she was telling me that, hey, Mika, I want to come there, but please bring me to a place where there's no, like, I want to live with my people, like a local place. I want to, and I was wondering in my mind, I was like, she don't know the local people, how they live here. You're not having bathroom. You're not going to be able maybe sometimes to take shower and all this. This kind of place you want to live. So I had to be honest with her that, okay, just tell me, like, what really do you need and where really you want to stay. But you have people like that, other people who they just want to be with the with the locals, just to be there, to experience their life and to have their life, and have people who they want to live another life, and it's totally fine, whatever it is. But we need to find that connection. We need, because we have a huge place to play, man. Like, I was sharing this about our culture in Africa. We don't really talk. We're not really honest most of the time. Like, I might not, I don't like you, and I cannot tell you at your face that I don't like you, but I can talk to my friend.
And then you're too honest.
I'll be like, I cannot do it. But when you talk about you guys are too honest. You guys are straight. You'll be like, oh, this and this, I don't like you. Oh, you'll be like, but for us, that is considered to be rude. To say things the way it is to a person, it's considered to be rude. So when you come here to Tanzania and Chile, for instance, and that's how you were raised, that's what you know, and you expect me to be straight with you, but this is not how I was raised. This is not even part of that's not how we roll. So you have already these two different parts that separate us, but we need to create a bridge to bring us together. Okay, you with your culture, me and my culture, we need to find a common ground. Where can we stand together? And I think what I'm doing to change that, because there's a part of my culture that I believe that this we should not hold, this we should throw away. It doesn't help us. It doesn't do anything to us. What I do, I bring that culture with what I'm doing. If I have a company, that's the culture of my company will be. If I have a meeting with students, university students, that's what I would talk to them, that this doesn't help us. And I think we should be talking. If there's something going wrong in the country, we should be able to stand up and speak about it, that this has to change. Should be able to bring change. So all these things, I think, diaspora, it has a big role to play, in the continent, and us as well, we have a big role to play, so that you guys, when you come home, you don't just feel like home. You know that I'm home, you know that I'm home. I wish, I wish we can have homecoming too in Tanzania one day. Ethiopia, they had that. Ghana, they had that. Hope we can have that in Tanzania as well, because I'll go there to airport to pick up my people, Go there with all these banners, and I'll be asking your names. What is your name? If you have English name, I'll give you the local name right away, right there. I'll be like, your name will be Zawadi. Zawadi means gift. Forget about your Smith name. What kind of name is that? Your name will be Zawadi. Your name will be this and that. I think it'll be incredible, man. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think if I could put it into words, what I feel like each piece has to offer, if locals would welcome us and help restore what's been lost, culture and identity and all those things, welcome and restore for the continent, and then for the diaspora, learn and join and build.
Yeah.
You know, we have something to offer, but it has to be done in a specific way. And then you said something about, you know, us, the two different groups having common ground.
Yeah.
Said that, I immediately thought, yeah, but in order to have common ground, you have to have a common vision. For all of us, with the exception of Ethiopia, everybody was colonized or enslaved in some way. For all of us, we're just now coming to a place where we can think about how to move forward. So that's what's so important about the work that God has given you to do, and that so many other people are doing in the continent. You need a common vision if you're going to have common ground. Otherwise, you don't have anything to really unify for. You have no reason. So One Africa is a reason to unify, because it's a reason to get on common ground, because now you have a common vision. If we, all of us, no matter where we are in the world as Africans, if we all have the mindset that we are for the empowerment and freedom and thriving and safety and prosperity of other African people, that doesn't mean we hate other groups. You know how they do. You can try to heal and restore Black people, like we don't care about anybody else. It's like, you know, whatever. If that's our mindset and our goal and mission, now we have a common place to come together and put aside our differences, because that's the only reason why people put aside their differences in any situation. That's the reason you don't flip out at your job. It's the reason why, you know, you stay in your church or stay in your school or stay in your whatever. It's because that place where you are, that you're staying, has a vision that you share, and you're trying to accomplish that thing. It's the reason why you stay in it, you know, go through whatever you got to go through to have a good marriage. Same thing. Have to have a common vision and a common goal. And I'm so excited. We've talked about a lot of the challenges, but man, let me tell you something. I am so excited to be African now. Now is our time. Now is our time. And there are people that never existed before. You can find your tribe. You can get on a plane. You can go home. You can eat your food. We can interact with each other. We are healing, y'all, and it is so amazing. There is, lots of work to be done. We got to roll up our, but we are coming back, baby. We are healing, and I am loving it. I'm here for all of it. I love it. This is a dynamic time to be African. So, fight whatever challenges that we have. Ooh, they're gonna be writing books about us, how we bounced back, how we took our
This is the new
the people with the melanin that rock all the gold and, you know, got our flag and sing all. We are so powerful, y'all. And if we do not get back on one accord with each other, then we will continue to be people whose power and resources and wealth are harnessed by other people that are not us, and most times don't like us. Do not give these people the power to take our gifts and our resources and our swag, man. The world marches to the drum beat that we set. We are the setters of culture. Y'all already know this. We are so dope. And there is no reason to continue to be exploited because we can't see ourselves in another Black person. The one who will not embrace their brother will be ruled by their enemy.
Come on now. I love that. Can you repeat that? Please repeat that again. I love that line.
Yes, the one who will not embrace their brother will be ruled by their enemy. And that is what has happened to us. At the end of the day, we can say colonization, slavery, Europeans, whatever. But our Achilles heel has been our division. And if that did not exist, they would have never succeeded. And we have to close that door that they walked through, put them out of it, and close that door that they walked through, and walk forward as one people. And I'm not saying one cultural melting pot where no one has their tribes or their own languages. I'm not saying forget where each of our respective people come from, but I'm saying African first, and then your tribe after that, your specific group of after that. We have to be on one accord, because the world knows, baby, listen, I don't care what they put about us in the news. The world knows how dope we are. They know it. They know how beautiful we are. They know how talented we are. They know how strong we are. There are literally entire industries built off of our back. The NFL, the NBA, the music industry, culture, all of that. So many things. And we need to be the benefactors of it. When they came and interrupted us and found what we had, they found riches, not just in our soil, but in our souls, baby. And we need to be the ones who are thriving and benefiting and prospering from that. I know Black Panther is a completely fictional thing. I know Wakanda ain't real. But all I'm saying is, why not? Why can't we?
That's how it's supposed to be.
We live like and be the group of people that choose to be benevolent enough to share our wealth and talents and gifts with the world. That's the Africa that I want to see, where we are strong and united, and we choose to trade with you on equal ground. And we choose to enter into contracts with you on respectable, equal terms, beneficial terms. We choose, not we're forced because we divided and there's all this corruption and drama. I want to see the Africa that commands the kind of respect that we should, because we are funding the world. Our talent and our resources are running and building and funding the world, and it's about time we were the benefactors of that. Come on, y'all. Come on.
Sister, you dropped so many bombs right here. And, you know, you have no idea what is just going on in my mind, man. I'm crying with African Union, man. I'm crying with African Union so bad. I'm crying because today, man, when you go to the UK, you have more than 13,000 Nigerian doctors in the UK, man. Some of them are in the United States, a lot of them. You can say Nigerian, you can say Ethiopians, a lot of them. And you come to the continent, we don't even have doctors. You can talk about engineers. You can talk about all these people. You can talk about so many Africans who, let's say they were taken, or some of them, they just got scholarship and they're working right now in all these big companies, transforming their countries. It's literally like before, when our ancestors were taken, they became slaves in those countries. They work like slaves. They built those countries, built for them. And yet there you have also the smart people, you know, we call brain drain, taken away. Of course, receiving scholarship, there's nothing bad with that. But eventually they end up staying there because of financial issues, working there, transforming their country. Exactly the same thing that happened before, but this time it's different because you receive your money and all the stuff. But then when you come to the continent, man, I don't know if I'm thinking like, this is very easy to transform continent. It's very easy. African Union, give African passports, union passport to our people, to all the Africans who are outside of the continent, to all the diaspora who are outside of the continent. Give them a choice. If they want to come back home, they should come back home and do their work to transform this continent. Imagine how many doctors we're going to have, how many engineers we're going to have, how many innovators we're going to have here in the continent. Because these guys are innovators. These guys they have knowledge. Africa, we want to industrialize Africa, but you cannot do that if you don't have skilled labor to operate that. Even if we do that today, but we have a lot of Chinese running our projects. We have a lot of, you know, other people at the continent running our own things in the continent. You have African Union that was built by Chinese. Our roads, our buildings, everything, our railways, they're built by them. This is because we don't have enough skilled labor, Africans, and it's not like we don't have. They are outside of this continent, but we make it too difficult for them to come back home. So African Union, why is it there? It's there to unite our people. It's there to unite our countries. Why not giving African Union passport to our people? Give them an opportunity to come back home and to transform this continent. Imagine, man, if you open that door, man, if you just open that door, imagine how many Africans, just Ghana, man, look at Ghana, look at Ethiopia when they had like homecoming, how many people they came back home? I went to Ethiopia 4 times this year. I met with so many Americans who move, reallocate to Ethiopia with all the propaganda we are hearing happening there.
Yep.
How many of them they moved to Ghana?
Yep.
You had even Steve Harvey going homecoming. He went to Ghana because he is Ghanaian as well. You have Israel. That guy Israel is also Ghanaian. His roots are from there.
I got so many roots. Yes.
And yes, man, I don't know, man. Like for me, I see this continent. It can be transformed by our people. We can industrialize this continent. We can have all kind of industry one in this continent. Don't tell me that it will be like, don't tell me that it will be as, air pollution and all that stuff. Africa right now constitutes only 3% of the world air pollution. And we have more than 1.3 billion people. That's a very less amount of air pollution it constitutes to this world. But look at European Union, look at other sides. We need our people to come back home. We need skilled labor to come back home to train our people. We have Africans who are working in Silicon Valley. They can come back here and train our people, go to universities. You have a professor teaching about IT, theoretically, not even practically, but theoretically, just talking about these, and then you go in our education system, you go somebody, take an exam of, the ways to operate, what is that? Laundry machine. And you need to answer ABC, but you've never seen laundry machine in your life. You always clean your house with your hand, your clothes with your hand. How can you answer those questions? What are we preparing for for the future? What are we preparing for all this kind of system of education we have? But bring our people back home, open the doors for them to come back home. If you cannot give them African Union passport, which you're fighting for now, then give them dual citizenship so they can come and train our people. Do you know, if you just Tanzania like this, just the government of Tanzania say, all right, we need people with masters and PhD to come home to train our people. Or we need doctors to come to train. Even if you want to volunteer, come and volunteer and do that. We don't want to use UNICEF and all these, international NGOs that we know they have their own agenda when they come to Africa. And you take an example of Congo, what's happening there and what's going on with all this international organization. Why not bringing our people who are skilled and they're willing to come to volunteer to train our people, to actually even treat our people in the continent? How many companies, black people, they have outside of the continent? And they create like millions and millions of dollars every single day. And they will be willing to come back in the continent to transform this if they are given a chance. How many of them? Did we give them a chance? And that's why most of them, they're angry and they're mad because you guys sold us away and you don't even want us to come back. When you come back home, we feel like we're isolated. We feel like you guys, you don't like us. You don't want us to be there. That's why there's so much frustration, because we don't do anything about it. Today, we're talking about dual citizenship. You ask leaders, they don't even think about it. They say, this will take forever. Man, and this is really frustrating me, man, because I don't know. I think I was talking to Mark the other day. I was saying that I think we complicate things so much. Life is easy. It's very easy. We just complicate it so much. When I think about one Africa, when I think about one passport, when I think about one army, when I think about one currency, it's very, very easy. It's a decision to make in a moment like that. Talking about funding African Union, Africans can do that. We can do that. We are willing to do that. But there's nothing being done because of all these systems that are happening. I always say that the system that this world has, it was never created for black men. That's why you can go to any country in this world and you'll not feel safe. You'll not feel like yourself. You'll be isolated. You'll be exploited. You will be, segregated because the system was not created for you. But badly, even in the continent, the system is not for us. We have so many donations, so many aids, and you don't even know where you're living in. If I'm living in China or I'm living in Africa, you don't know that. You don't know that right now in the continent. And we have our people across the world everywhere. And the system is so bad in the continent.
Super critical. It's critical. It's critical. That's one of the things that steered my decision, besides just walking through that journey with God, and coming home to myself and the healing that was required for that. But that's one of the major things that steered my decision to go back to Africa and to relocate permanently. Because I realized once I started self-educating and learning about Africa for real, it went from being this war-torn, poor, disease-infested place that was portrayed in the Western media to realizing that Africa is the wealthiest continent on earth. And the reason why they propagate the things that they do is so that they can continue to exploit. And so for me, I realized like, yeah, I could stay in America and continue to fight for my people. And yes, I was out there in them streets. Yes, I protested. Yes, I voted. Yes, I went all the different avenues that were available to me to lift my voice and say, you can't kill us in the streets like animals. But they've been killing us in the streets like animals. And I don't think that the diaspora is going to have some radically different outcome than the continent itself. And what I mean by that is, if you out here in the diaspora as an African person and you think that you're going to be respected, protected, cherished, whatever, while Africa is being exploited and taken advantage of, and people trying to get their next round of colonization in, you crazy. Because the whole reason we're having the experience that we have when we live outside the continent, that discrimination, is because of the way Africa is treated and viewed. So that needs to be corrected first. Yeah. You can't fight the battle backwards. We have to start at the roots. Our continent needs to be strong. If people don't respect where you come from, and that's the image of Africa, that's going to follow you wherever you go. Wherever you go. Case in point, I'll bring it up again. Ukraine. Where do you think they got the idea that Black people were inferior and that they didn't want to save their lives? Where do you think they got that? That's not new. And that comes from all the derogatory, that comes from not being in charge of telling our own stories. It comes from being exploited. It comes from all these different things. It comes from us not having authority over our own bodies and resources and space and whatever. That's where that comes from. Somebody else is telling your story. So before you ever even got to make an impression on a group of people, they already have these ideals about you that were shaped from folks who are benefiting off of that story. That's why they don't stop telling it, because they're still benefiting from that story. Because understand, as long as Africa's in the condition that it's in, then they get to come and be the ones in the background that pay the little ragtag group of people, give them this camo and these guns and stuff, and keep stuff destabilized and help, keep corrupt leaders in places where they have no business being. The world is funding that. There's a lot of people keeping quiet and seeming like they're so dignified and represent so peace and democracy and hope and freedom and blah, 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 blah. But they in Africa wreaking havoc and causing all kinds of death and destruction and division and all, but they present themselves on a world stage like it's something else. And the reason is because ain't nobody checking for Africa. If not us, then who? Ain't nobody checking for us. That's why these people who do what they do in our continent don't get sanctioned, because they all doing it and they all benefiting from it. And it's the hush hush thing. Nobody wants to be like, well, I won't say nobody, because I have seen old girl, where's she from? Australia, that recently stood up and was like, all of y'all know what's up with Africa, and we are robbing them. And that's why it's not, so I strongly believe that we need to set our focus. That's that one vision, that one common goal. We have to take care of our home. If our home is not respected, we will not be respected anywhere else in the world. I strongly believe that, because I have yet to see it happen. I have yet to see any place in the world where you can go where Africans live, where we are completely free of racism and discrimination and being looked down on. It's not to victims, but I'm just saying I've never been another place in the world where we don't experience some kind of backlash that comes from this idea that we are inferior, which was set in motion so that they could freely plunder Africa and not feel guilty or seem like bad people for it. They're just savages. Oh, they're just monkeys. Oh, they're, don't worry about them. It's their lives are, you know, that's not a big deal. So they're profiting off of that. And we have to outsmart them. We have to start thinking more strategically. And we are. We are. That's why me and you are here today having this conversation. I'm all the way over here in Georgia and you all the way in Tanzania. And we're having this conversation about how we reclaim our continent. That's the energy of African youth, baby. We're ready. We are ready for this thing. And you better believe, we talked about this yesterday. I'll say this and then let it go. But the real leaders in a place are the ones with vision, not the ones with titles.
Yeah. 100%.
Leaders. So these folks that are in places wherever they are that don't have no business being there and don't have a vision, that are not striving toward, that are not matching the vibe of African youth, that are like, listen, we tired of it. We're sick of it. We're sick of it. And we want a better future. If they don't match that vibe, they're going to be replaced.
Oh, yeah.
And it might take a little minute, but I'm telling you, we the ones with the heart and the vision. We know what needs to be done, and we are going to get it done. Believe that. We have the vision for it. We see the Africa that we want, and we won't settle for anything else. The time is now. It has come. We are fed up. We're, man tired. We done.
You know, we talked about this. We say that, you know, for Black lives to matter, Africa has to matter. And I think that's the whole thing that you were, you know, talking about right now. Because if you don't care about a home, how can you care about the owner of the home? Like that, this is everything. This is everything. And I say this all the time, that when you step outside of Africa, you just become another Black man, whether you are an ambassador or you are president or whatever. I made a video talking about how our leaders were treated when they went to the death of the Queen. You know, in my opinion, I feel like you guys, you were not even supposed to be there. But anyways, bureaucracy and all this diplomatic, they had to go there. But how they were treated, all of them, they were together in a single bus. The same bus. They're inside the bus, like, you know, kids going to school, the same bus right there, going to the funeral. And then you're thinking, like, what if anything happens? What if accident happen? You lose the entire Africa in just a moment like that. You guys have embassies there. Why don't you take your embassy's car? You cannot even be respected. World leaders, why other leaders, you know, Biden went there with the special, everything, all the stuff, and other leaders, you know, they went there with their, like, you know, the first world leaders, according to what they say. And that's the note I want to finish with. 3 lies that we believe for so long time that has to be changed in our mindset, because all these lies, they were written and they're out there to undermine us. They're written there to feel like I always need to go to the first world because I'm in the third world. These are a bunch of lies that we need to transform to our people, and our people needs to understand that these are lies. And this is what I want to put in here. I prepared this page to share a little bit, and then I'll hear your opinion, and then we'll be closing, because I think we had a lot of things here, guys. If you're not learning, then you ain't gonna grow, man. This conversation has been just so enlightening. These are lies that I wrote, you know, a while back when I was thinking about, you know, Africa and where Africa we are today. The lies and truth. Today, if you go on internet and write Africa, you'll see what is coming. And that's what you were telling here, Chidi, that this is what you knew about Africa. But you went to Ghana and you were surprised that, oh, man, I've never seen that. I've never seen this. This is how people live. This is how, you know, they have rice. Oh, they actually have shoes. Oh, they have toilets, actually. Oh, they have good roads. You know, they have highways as well. Oh, they have trains. Like, you're surprised. These are kind of things that you never see them on the media. When you're there, you only see terrorist attacks. You know, so you have people today, they don't even want to go to some other countries in Africa because they believe that it's a matter of life and death. But you have people who are living there every single day, you know. So the first lie that me personally, and this is my personal opinion, is that there is developing countries and there is developed countries. It's a lie to me. It's a lie to me because I don't believe that there's a developed country. I believe that we are all developing country. Because if you're well developed, why do you constantly exploit Africa to develop yourself? You are a developed country. Why do you need to exploit me to develop yourself if you're a developed country? So the bottom line is we are all developing country. We're looking to the shot to develop ourselves, take care of our lives, take care of our people. That's what we're looking for. So you Africans, when you're looking out there, remove that concept in your mind, because when you think that, oh, they're developed and I am developing, I need them. I need their help. I need their support because they're in another level. We are right here. We need them to develop us as well. But in fact, they don't really develop us. I gave this data before that every single year, Africa lose more than 50 to 100 US billion dollar because of loans. Every single year they lose that. Like the money you receive as a loan is lesser compared to money that is being taken away from you. That's what Africa lose every single year, 50 to 100 US billion dollar according to the UN. This is UN report. It could be more than that because that is UN report. And then another lie is third world countries. So you have first world countries, you have second world countries, you have third world countries. And guess who is in the third world countries? Is Africa. So you have a bunch of Africans today who wants to run away from the third world countries and find a better life in the first world countries. And what happens is they die in the Mediterranean seas. And what happened is some of them, they're being killed. They don't even get to go there. Where is the first world country? Man, maybe we'll have like, 2 worlds after Elon Musk succeed to move people to Mars. Maybe we'll have 2 countries and we'll have like the first world right here and another world somewhere else. Baby, but we are all living.
Go to Mars and just give us Africa back. Y'all can go on.
The truth is we are all living in the same world. One world is the world we're living today. This mentality of thinking that you are poor than anybody else, this mentality to think that you are down there than anybody else is not the truth. The most richest continent on earth is Africa. But you know why we are where we are? Because we believe that we are developing countries. They keep exploiting us. We believe that we are third world countries, so we don't even want to live here. You talk to youth, and most of them, their dreams is to go to America. It's to go to America to have life, American dream. Man, there's African dream right here. An African dream is to transform this continent, to have one Africa in our generation and to bring our people back home. The last lie, world is supporting Africa. The truth is Africa sustains the world. Not only support, I use the word sustain because sustain means strengthening physically and mentally. That is sustain. Africa sustains the world. I give these examples all the time that when you go to Niger, there's this one country called Niger. 40% of electricity in France comes from Niger uranium. 40% of French electricity, it comes from Niger uranium. But 84% of Niger people, they don't have electricity. So they have their natural resources. It doesn't even benefit them. That is not only one country. You can talk about Congo. You can talk about Tanzania. We have Tanzanite, the most precious mineral on earth. You cannot find anywhere in the world but here. But who is benefit from it? Indians.
I keep
Africa, Tanzania, I said we don't even benefit from it. So who sustained the world? Is it Niger or is it France? It's us, Africa. Africa sustained the world. Africa holds the world together. Okay, talk about raw materials. Right now, we're demanding for eco-trade. We don't have eco-trade. Africa trades with Europe more than any other continent on it, even more than our own people. But do you know how we get from that? We get nothing. That's why today you have Ghana protesting from exporting their cocoa because they're losing billions and billions and billions of money and they're threatening to put sanction on them. Raw materials comes from Africa, and you guys have seen a lot of videos that their plan is to take as much as Africa to not produce at all, but to send raw materials. They go, they produce it, and they send to us with higher price. We have coffee coming from Africa, coming from Ethiopia, Tanzania, Rwanda, Kenya. But what do we get out of that? Only Starbucks makes a lot of money out of it. But Tanzania, Africa, we get nothing out of it. Who sustained the world? Africa. These are 3 lies that you should eradicate out of your mind, that we are all developing country, we have one world, and we sustain the world. If you know this, you will know that you are in the position of demand, not begging, not asking, but when we come together and understanding our strength, understand the strength of each other, stand together, I'm telling you, these people, they will kneel down to us to just get what they want to get from us. And that's what we need to do. And that's why it's very important to have one Africa. And that's why it's very important to have our people back home here in Africa. That's very important to open the doors for our people diaspora to come back and to feel like home and to come back here to own the land. Forget about, I know there's a lot of, there's a lot of concerns that, oh, what if it's, they're spies? What if it's this and that? What if that is that? There could be a system that we can work things out very well. But you see why people, they want to come back home. This is their home, man. Even on the continent, we have Africans who are spy here in the continent. They are here in the continent, spy. So this cannot be a reason. Why not? Why do we? Anyways, I'll just give this a chance to you, Chidi, to say whatever you want to say. Lastly, I point out these lies and, the truth that is out there, that it's very important for our people to believe, to move away from where to another place. So, yeah, I just want to hear you. But I appreciate everybody who is here on YouTube and everybody who is here on, TikTok. We have 80 people watching us on TikTok. And we have a couple people watching us on YouTube as well. So we appreciate you guys for joining. Yes, Chidi.
I would just echo the same thing that you said, and just that it's time, and it's time for us to shift. And that shift needs to be focusing on what we have, y'all. And I keep saying this, but I mean it. We are so dope, and we have so much to offer. Everything you just said about us sustaining the world, we could go, slide after slide after slide with that. We have to transition out of a mentality where we think somebody else is coming to rescue us, because they're not. They come in to get what they can get. There's always a scramble for Africa. There's always the way to try and figure out. I just feel like the world, when it comes to Africa and African people, are always trying to scheme and plot and figure out, how can we extract the value out of this land and this people without honoring this land and this people. Like, we're too lucrative to just kill off, but they need to figure out how they can extract what's valuable in our soil and in our people without actually having to look at us eye to eye and trade with us and deal with us like human beings, because it would be too expensive. I literally saw a dude stand up in front of a classroom and say, it is to the world's benefit that Africa is underdeveloped, because if Africa was in a place where it was in control of its minerals and resources, and they were charging the kind of prices that we like to charge in the first world, we wouldn't be able to afford it. We have developed our world, the Western world, the first world. We've developed it by plundering, by exploiting, by getting, corruption and getting these things dirt cheap. We've said those things a million times, and we know what all the problems are. We know the corruption, we know the history, we know whatever. But the thing that I want to leave off saying is, there's such an energy right now. Africans everywhere are coming on one accord, especially the younger ones. Y'all, we have the vision for the Africa that we want. And if the people that are in positions of power do not line up with that, God will move them out of the way. Okay? He will move them out of the way. We are the ones with the vision. It's time. We're going to come out of, the things that we need to come out of by focusing on what we want and what our strengths are, how dope and resilient and strong and creative we are. That's how we get where we're going. Because, I see so much news, and it's heartbreaking sometimes, man. It's heartbreaking to turn on something and see this man on our continent with babies, teaching them to say in Chinese that they're black devils. That should not even be a thing, because on no other continent on earth would we be able to go and teach their children how to say that they're demons and devils. No, they don't let other people come in their continent and do it. And then they act like we're so wrong and bad for wanting, to put our own first. I didn't say only, I said first. So just know, I believe that our time is now, where we have what we need, and the healing is already in process. The awakening is already in process. And whatever it is that God has given you that you can contribute, if you're an entrepreneur, if you are a writer, you sing, you act, you dance, keep in the forefront of your mind to do those things in such a way that it empowers and restores and heals us, our home first, Africa first, then the rest of the world.
Oh, man. Chidi. Oh, Chidi. Where else are we going to run to, What else are we going to run to?
Don't run.
Only home.
Don't run.
Africa is our only home we have. We need to protect this place. We need to.
God gave us, and that's where we are indigenous to. That is our home.
And why are we selling our home, man? Why are we selling our home, man? The other day I wrote on my tweet because, man, a huge percentage of the land, is not even owned by our people in most of our countries. This is what I think we have to finish with this note. I want to read something that I shared on my Twitter. And then I want to hear your opinion on this. And, we'll close this session because, man, like, don't even own our land. It's our land, man. It's Africa. But the system, man, like, the system, the government have a big role to play in all these things we're talking about. Release dual citizenship, I wrote this. This is what I said, and I want to read for you and to hear your opinion as well on Twitter, that Africa needs to own land, venture into real estate housing and large-scale farms, and invest in other legitimate businesses. The time is now to invest in Africa and take charge of our destiny. Unfortunately, and equally sad is that in Africa, large parcels of land and big businesses are owned by non-Africans, least to say foreigners. This means that several African countries mostly benefit from the taxes collected from these businesses, but much of the profit leaves the continent. Needless to say, we Africans are developing foreign nations rather than developing ourselves. This is what I was talking about. Africa sustained the world, even in the land ownership. Colonialism is still visible in present-day Africa. Therefore, the Africans' ownership of assets is the real wealth and not how much foreign currencies you have in the bank account. Make the step now and expand your horizon in Africa. This is another problem we have. You come here to the country, you see a lot of foreigners just owning everything. If it's Chinese, even Indians, if anyone, they own a lot of things. But what about Africans? We don't have anything. We don't have a land. We don't own it. We don't think that is the wealth. And even sometimes in the system, it doesn't allow. Some countries, it doesn't allow people to own as well. This is dangerous. This is dangerous because this is our own home with God. And you'll find out eventually you have colonial master. I mean, if I own your land, I own you. I mean, if I own your house and you're living in my house, I own you. I can do anything in that house and you'll have nowhere to go. And that's where we're going. You see a lot of lands owned by foreigners in Africa. In Africa, what about us? What are we owning? And that's why they can decide anytime to do anything with the land. Today, to move you that here, we need to change this. You need to get out of here. We need to build hotels. We need to do this. Get out of here. Just anyhow. And you don't have anything to say because you don't have any ownership of that land. Where are we going? What kind of Africa are we creating? Like, the priority should be for Africans to have, like, every single Africa. If your country have 100 million people, everybody should own something in the country. Have a sense of ownership because that is the real wealth. If somebody comes from outside, you can't own land right here. If you're not African, if you're not having that roots, you cannot own land.
Because y'all already know y'all's behind and we don't trust you. Go home.
I can lend my place for you, but you ain't gonna own my land. It's my land. You build your business, but this is my land. Build on my land. You need to pay the tax of land to me. You understand what I'm saying? Like the land has to be, the ownership has to be to Africans. So that when you come, you want to build your industry, you're Chinese, and you want to build your industry, you build land on my land. You got to pay the land tax to me. Things are changing like that. Back in the days, you used to pay the colon tax to them, but now they have to pay it to us. That's how it's supposed to be. But where are we going, man? Are we going to be really able to take this land away from these people? It's, you know, it's sad. It's sad. I think let's finish with that note and maybe finish with brighter note, you know, after that. It's good to talk about the hope side of everything that we're doing here today, so that people have a good sleep.
Yeah, right. So the bright note in my response to that, and I say this a lot to my grandma because we talk about the state of affairs for African Americans here all the time. And the thing to remember is, yeah, there are a lot of things that need to be improved, like what we were talking about, ownership, so many education, so many different things. But where we are in the process, I think even, you know, we take so much pressure too from the outside world of like, well, what are y'all doing in your community? How come Chicago isn't fixed? Well, what about this? And how come this crap hole this? And how come this? So I think for us, we have to recognize globally, y'all, we're just now getting to a place where we're able to breathe and really survey and look around and understand what the hell just happened to us. Okay. We're just now looking at all the damage and all the stuff and recognizing like, yo, okay, this is what happened, how it happened, whatever. So we're at the appropriate place in the healing process. Like we're having the conversation, we're casting the vision, we're pushing for more. You know, it's not overnight that these things are going to get done. It first has to start. Every healing process, every process of major change first has to start with the recognition of the problem. You have to understand how you got where you are. So we are exhibiting the signs of people who are on the path of moving forward, on the path of healing. The fact that we're even having these conversations, the fact that we got Wode Maya in the continent, the fact that we have you, the fact that we have Go Black to Africa and Jake Cameron and so many other countless creators, all y'all out there, thank you. We have so many people that are taking the first steps. And I think it's easy to be hard on yourself when you're unsatisfied with the place that we are and feel like we should be so much farther than where we are. But sometimes I have to remind people, even for our community here, I'm like, bro, they shot Martin Luther King Jr. in the 60s. That hasn't even been 100 years ago. And we have millionaires and billionaires here. Like, we have to recognize it's a process, and there are certain stages to the process of healing and recovery. And that's with everything in life. And we are healing and we are recovering. There are signs of life all over. We are not by any means just laying down and taking this mess. You know, we are amongst ourselves talking about and working on the solutions. People are coming home and opening businesses and, you know, building and focused on education, and people are being kind of, you know, I feel like God's hand is pulling a lot of people back, turning a lot of focus. Like, I have something for you, like in your own home, in your own land, not you over here begging for somebody to please, you know, respect you and please not hurt you and please, you know, view you as an equal. I have something for you in your own land, in your own place. So we're making progress, y'all. That's the encouragement that I would leave us on. We're healing. I can see it. I'm witnessing it. Look at the bridges that are being built. Look at what we're doing. And we are so resilient. We're going to get there. We just have to keep our eye on the prize, because right now, me, you, so many of us, Mika, we're doing the heavy lifting because we're the generation that's standing up and casting that new vision for Africa. We're the ones dealing with, hey, who sold who betrayed who? Let's have this conversation. Let's get past it. We're the generation doing that initial work. And you know, it's always hardest to break up the fallow ground. When you're the one breaking the ground, it's so hard and you have so far to go. But our ceiling, that's going to be the next generation's floor. They're going to take it to levels we didn't even imagine, our children's children. And I can't wait. We just have to be willing to do our part, because sometimes there can seem like there's so much to do, and there is. that people faint in the middle of the journey. And that's what I've talked to so many people that come over here from the continent, and they never want to go back home because they have no vision. They think that the problems are too big and too deep that they can never be solved. Like there's no hope for Africa at all. And they just want to leave and never come back, or never, you know, visit in the first place. But those of us that know, if you know, you know. If you're paying attention, you see it. You see the life, you see the hope, you see Afro beats over here taking over the world. You see forever. You see us telling our stories. Nice. You see Black people rising up out of the ashes. And that's what's happening. And we have to be patient and have grace and mercy on ourselves as we recognize, like, yo, it's a process and we're on this step and we're making progress.
Yeah. You know, I appreciate that so much, Chidi. I want you to repeat what you said about leadership area. You know, I want to note it down. You talked about, you said leadership is about vision and not a title. How did you say it? I want exactly how you said it.
So basically, if everybody's in a dark room, right? Everybody's in the pitch dark. The person with the flashlight is the leader. That's just very clear. So just because someone has a title, leaders, the way that it's designed to be is that a leader is the person that sees where you're going. Otherwise, how can you lead anybody? You're not going anywhere. Real leaders are the ones that have vision, not just somebody who's been appointed to a place. Because you can have somebody that's in a position of authority, but they don't have no vision, and they're going to be replaced and overcome by people who have that real voice. Period. Yeah. Martin Luther King Jr. was not no president. He wasn't elected to any sort of official reconciliation or integration office in the United States of America. They never elected him to anything. They assassinated him, but he changed the course of history.
Come on now.
Vision. If God is giving you the vision, baby, run with that. You don't need other people's permission. The permission came when you got that vision. Run with that.
100%. 100%.
That's for you too, Mika. Run with that, because you have a vision. That's why we sitting here today. Run with that. Yeah, we have a long way to go, but every door that needs to be opened for you and all the rest of us, it will be opened, because we the ones with the vision. That's who needs to be leading Africa, is the ones with the vision of a prosperous, thriving, healthy, happy, peaceful, unified Africa.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so very much, Chidi, for your wisdom. I think this conversation, it's needed, and we just had an amazing conversation. Lastly, I would just like to say this. Any word you want to say to any diaspora who were hurt, or, you know, maybe even left Africa because of what happened, you know, regardless of whatever that happened, if you have any word to them, what would you say?
Sometimes family hurts family, in the same way that everybody on continent may not know our history and may have misperceptions of us, and misperceptions that we have of them. Just, we have to move forward, because in order for Black lives to matter, Africa has to matter. We're not going to just be able to turn our backs and hope for some better outcome here, and our home is being disrespected and looted and exploited. That would be like if somebody is breaking in my house, right? I leave for work and they come in my house and they take everything in there. I can't just stay at work and hope that, just by virtue of me staying at work, I can't just hope that my house is going to put itself back together. We have work to do. We have work to do. And I view it like this. We have to live somewhere, and we have a choice to build two houses. This is the story I told myself when I decided I'm deuces. I'm about to go back home and do good for my people. You have a choice of two houses. The first house is a fixer-upper. It needs work. You got to put a roof on it. You're going to have to mow the grass. You're going to have to do all the things. It's a fixer-upper. But this house is your family home, and it's been in your home for generations. When you fix this house, it got your name on it. It belongs to you. It's in your neighborhood with your people. That to me represents Africa. The other home that we have a choice to build is here in the diaspora, wherever we are. And we've been trying to build this house and build this house and build this house. It's a fixer-upper too. Amen. It's not perfect. It's a fixer-upper. The roof is broke down. The backyard. They don't come pick up the trash like they should. It's a fixer-upper. There's still work to do. However, the difference between the first home, that's your family home with your name on it, and you fix it up and it's yours, is that this home, they want to just take a little moment and see how it goes. They're not real sure if they're going to just, let you maybe rent a room in the basement, or they're going to put you on the title. Maybe they'll put you on the mortgage. Maybe they'll put your name on it. Maybe they won't. So you'll invest all this work and sweat and blood and tears. And at the end of the day, not even be assured that that home that you put that roof on and did all that work for even belongs to you. And that to me represents what it's like to be here in America. We've been marching, we've been protesting, we've been crying, we've been voting, we've been engaged, we've been doing all this stuff. And at the end of the day, on the whole, this is not to say all Americans or all white people fall in the same boat, but overall, they still having a conversation about whether or not we should be equal homeowners. I'm not putting another brick on this daggum house. Not another one. I'm not putting no more roofs on here, because y'all still can't decide if after I do all that, I'm going to be able to have co-ownership and equal ownership of this house. Now, they'll happily take my labor. They'll happily take my all that work. But y'all still having a conversation about whether we can be co-owners of this house? Hell no. I'm not no fool. Y'all, let's heal and come on home, because for our lives to matter anywhere else on the globe, Africa has to matter. We got to start our roots. If your hair ain't healthy, you can't moisturize the ends. You got to go to the scalp, to the roots. And that's home for us. So whatever hardships there are, we just going to have to brave it, because it's hard for us as Black people, baby, everywhere. And we need to be, if we're going to have to endure hardship anyways, we need to be enduring it in the place that's going to return the greatest results for us. Invest my money where it's going to return the greatest result for me, my time and effort. That's what I have to say.
100%. 100%. Chidi, do you mind to also finish up with the word of prayer? I'd love to give that opportunity to you to finish up with the word of prayer.
Ooh. God, we thank you for this conversation today. We thank you for every bridge that's being built. We thank you that Africans are made in your image. We thank you for a beautiful, rich land that you have given us. We thank you for all of the doors that are being opened, all of the healing that's occurring, all of the progress that is being made. Father, I can witness to that as a person here in the United States. So many of our leaders were believers. Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther King Jr. and Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth. That whole forward movement was done and strengthened and empowered by your spirit. And I see your hand moving now. Everybody who is called to be a part of this, Father, whatever would keep them from doing that, we bind that right now in the name of Jesus. We cast down that division in the name of Jesus. You said that unity is like the dew on Mount Hermon. It's like the oil that drips down, the anointing oil that drips down a priest's beard. Unified people can accomplish anything. So we thank you for a vision and action for unity amongst our people. We don't want to be a people who are upset and crying out for the rest of the world to love us and accept us and, view us as equals if we can't do it amongst ourselves. We're going to teach people how to treat us because we will model it amongst ourselves. Father, we thank you that you are the person that can turn a king's heart or move people that don't need to be in leadership positions. We don't want to have to do it by force, by bloodshed and drama and war. Move the people who would sell their own people out. It's been 500 years of corrupt people selling their own people out, and we are tired of it. Hear the cry of all tired Africans right now. We've had enough. We're being stifled because of it. We're suffering because of it. Move these people and raise up people who have your vision. Put them in the positions to do what should properly be done. Real leaders, real protectors, people with real integrity. And that's not to say that we don't have any of them on the continent, Lord, but we need so many more. Send them. The harvest is ripe. Send the laborers. We know that, man, you are the person who restores, you heal, you make sure justice gets accomplished, and it has been enough in this earth. We are tired. Thank you for all the ways that we can see that you are acting on our behalf, and we come in alignment with every way that you want to act on our behalf. You gave us that land. Now we ask that you restore us to it and prosper us in it, and break down every hindrance and every barrier to that. And Father, expose people and organizations that have our harm in mind, so that it can be clear. We know that you can reveal what gets whispered in a back room. Let it come out publicly. Let it be known where people really stand, Lord. Don't let them continue to play nice, good, friendly when the cameras are on for the media. Let them really be exposed for what they are. And there's a lot of that going on. We're getting to see what people are really like, but continue to do that. And convict people and turn people's hearts that are in situations or positions where they're exploiting Africa and African people. But you put the fear of God up in them, because we are made in your image, and it is enough, and it is our time. And we just ask you for everything that we need to accomplish this mission and this vision, so that we can prosper and thrive in the land that you gave us. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen to that. Wow. Chidi, I love you. And thank you so much for your heart and for all you've done, all you're doing. Welcome to the continent. Welcome to the land of origins. You know, you're mostly and warmly welcome to you and all other our brothers and sisters who wants to come back home. If you want to come to Tanzania specifically, I'm right here for you.
You know,
all right? Exactly. I'm right here for you. Chidi here, she just emailed me, and today we're having conversation. We just met, and we're having this conversation today. It sounds like we've been talking the whole month or something. No, we just met. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I know that we'll see what we're fighting for very soon, because God is on our side, and so everything is possible. I appreciate you.
Same.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, guys, everybody. We'll see you next time.